All right, welcome to another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt, and I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the news division of United Network. Our mission is to bring you the real news, and we do that by putting out a lot of content every week. We have in-depth news stories that the team and I work on for you guys each week. We have local stories told through the eyes of our field messengers. We talk about the restoration of our planet. We talk about intelligence agencies and crazy, governments and what in the world are they doing now in the Global Intelligence Agency report. And really, this is all about informing you so you can make the best choices for you and your family throughout the week. We are in a war. Most people don't realize that. They see other countries in wars, at least if you're here in the United States. But the whole world is at war right now. But this isn't a war that's going to be fought or that is being fought on a battlefield. Many people would consider this a spiritual battle. And it's also playing itself out in 3D as well. Some people didn't get the note that the light side is won, and we're dealing with them now. We talk a lot about that in our GIA reports. But you're here for the ride. Not only that, but you guys are active participants, because once certain structures start to fall, this is where we, the people, the real people, start picking up the pieces and really creating the world, which we like to call the new earth, of what we really want our planet to look like and how we want societies to be run. Because when you find out the truth about how everything was originally created and everything's based on darkness, you start scratching your head going, yeah, I think we can do it a little bit better. In fact, I think we could do it a lot better. And this is what we talk about. And this is why we give you the information we give you. Because batter up, pretty soon, it's going to be our turn to really turn the tables and create the place that we've always wanted to live. So what you're listening to now, well, this is a weekly podcast that we put out. And I like to think of it as a rundown, hence the name, of stories that we've released throughout the week. So if you happen to miss something, or maybe you didn't see it at all, maybe you're not one of our members, because our members get instant access to all of our content. We do put out our content about a week later, but you can also listen to the Rundown podcast and, get updated that way as well. This is a great opportunity to share our content with other people who may not have heard of us before. So if you like what you hear today, you can really easily copy the link wherever you're hearing or watching this podcast and send it to people so they're informed as well. With everything, with all content that we put out there, we always encourage you guys to think critically, do your own research, ask questions. There is still a lot of content out there online. I know they try to hide stuff and shadow ban stuff, but if you really, really want answers, you can find some of the missing pieces, right? The stuff that we talk about on UNN, some of the stuff you can look up. Some of the stuff is just information that most people don't have access to, the stuff that we talk about in the GIA report. But that's why we do these reports. So let's go ahead and start talking about what we discussed this past week. Here's the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. Okay, let's kick things off with our field messenger reports. Field messengers are people that send in stories about what's happening in their community. Some of the stories may be more news focused. Some of them are more community focused. This is really about everyone taking matters into their own hands, okay? You don't need someone to tell you what's going on in your backyard. You know what's going on in your backyard, so why not tell other people about it? And our field messengers don't have to put everything together. We actually have a production team that when you send us the content, we put the video together for you. So you don't have to have any experience. You don't have to have anything more fancy than the camera that is already built into your phone. And we have field messengers all around the world that when something happens, they send it in. And so if you want more information about how you can become a field messenger and what's expected, which really is tell us the truth of what's going on in your area when something happens, you can go to our website at unitednetwork.earth. There you'll find a section for our field messengers, and we've got some information out there that'll probably answer a lot of your questions. So let's go ahead and give you guys the stories that aired this week, and I'll do my best. Like I've said before, some of these stories really would be better if you watched them. So consider this kind of your brief description of each story so that you can go back and watch the stories later if you would like. Ruth out of California, of course, in the United States, takes us to a fungi festival in Marin County in California. And this is a festival that celebrates all things mushrooms, hence the name. Not only do they allow fun guys, but fun girls are welcome too. But this was a fun festival, and it was everything mushrooms, you guys. They even had someone that was giving a presentation to talk about magic mushrooms, which you don't usually hear a lot about, like in, common settings. I think we're going to hear more about this from a spiritual point of view. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to be as for people that just want to, get high or whatever. I think more people are going to be exploring mushrooms in different ways. They had a lot of mushroom gadgets and stuff, like clothing, things you can hang on your wall, all things mushrooms. Of course, there's a lot of medicinal benefits to mushrooms outside of the magic ones, and a lot of different types. So if you've never cooked with them, you can make things with them. It's pretty amazing. So if you want to learn more about that, check out that fungi festival. Kumiko out of Japan. Oh, I love this. So she teaches us how to make traditional miso, and it's in Japanese. She does her intro, I think, in English, and maybe she wraps things up in English, but her whole report is in Japanese. We've got subtitles on the screen. But one thing that was so interesting, so with miso, it's very simple. It's pretty much soybeans, there's some rice, salt, and a little bit of patience. I didn't know this. It takes about 10 months for miso to mature. And honestly, Kumiko just seemed like the sweetest thing in the world, and just a fun way to share her culture with us, right? That's a field messenger report. Show us, what's going on in your area and tell us more about the traditions. That's great. Keisha Beth out of England teaches us how to make soap from a plant. So you don't have to go to the store and buy the pump and everything, guys. You can actually just go out there. There is a specific type of plant, which she'll tell you more about. Actually, it's her friend that teaches us how to do this. And it's pretty much just taking the plant and putting it in water and wringing it out and massaging it a bit, and you get everything you need to make soap. And it actually works. In fact, it's a great degreaser. And I'm sure very cost effective, right? If you've got that plant in your area. So be sure to check that out. Monica out of Romania takes us to a beautiful place, a limestone landscape in southeastern Romania. And it is home to ancient gorges. There are secret caves. There's fossils everywhere. Limestone is great for preserving fossils. And it's right next to the sea. So you can imagine. She said there's about 80 species of fossils there. Pretty cool. And she said it's the oldest gorge area in Romania. Truly a remarkable natural wonder. Sophia out of Trinidad and Tobago, she takes us on a little ride. We go to this volcano, but it's a mud volcano. And I love that she said she did this for helping to homeschool some kids. So this was obviously like a field trip, right? And they look like they had the most fun time. So we hear a little bit from the guy that takes you up this volcano, and it's like this gray mud at the top, and they go swimming in it. Like it's all over them. In fact, like if someone has like a mud mask on or something, their eyes like pop out like really white. Imagine that just like all over your entire body, your entire body. And you can take a buddy with you too. But this mud is packed with minerals, so it's great for your skin. And like I said, they just look like they were having the time of their lives. All right, Kelly out of Indiana, a state in the U.S., takes us to South Bend, Indiana, and in the winter, they have what they call sidewalk skating. It's part of this little park area. It's normally a sidewalk, and it kind of wraps around. But during certain times of the year, they will put water on it, which turns to ice, and it creates this nice little corridor for ice skating, which is pretty cool. And it also opens up. There's like a larger part of the rink as well. But when I think of like an ice skating rink, this is not what I think of. This actually feels nicer because it's like more guided. I don't know. I can't really explain it. I guess you got to watch the video. But it's a beautiful park. They've got other things, some really cool looking playgrounds that look a little bit more natural, and looks like just a fun place to be. Emma out of Spain talks about bird protection. This is in Fuerteventura, Spain, and some locals are working to protect endangered birds that are facing really injury as well as loss of life. So she goes over some of the birds. We see a bunch of pictures, and she said some of the birds are actually impacted by power lines being built in the area. So they're also trying to match male and female birds for mating purposes and then release them back out into the wild. So great initiative there. Owen out of South Africa shows us some beach cleanup efforts, which is great. He is, like I said, South Africa, and there's a local beach there, and there's like a small group of them. And so he talks to the people cleaning up the beaches about why it's important to do that, also what they're finding, because they find some kind of interesting things when you're picking up the beach. That's just one small thing that you can do to improve your community, right? And finally, Julia out of Alabama, another state in the U.S., takes us to a bird sanctuary in Dauphin Island. It's called the Dauphin Island Bird Sanctuary. It's a refuge for migrating birds coming from Central and South Africa, offers them shelter and food as they plan to head up north. And yeah, she just shows us around the sanctuary. And she also talked about how certain areas, they quit mowing during times of the year. They, most people like things to look very structured and tailored and, freshly mowed and all of that. But that's not usually the best thing for the animals, right? And these birds really need the plants, the wildflowers that are just growing because this is a pit stop for them. And if you cut it all down, then what could that possibly do, right? That could hurt the migrating birds. And so she shares with us what a beautiful place it is and all of the nature that surrounds the sanctuary. Okay, let's talk about the news stories that the team and I worked on for you guys this week. We have a story about academic pressure. It's a common experience for students, often driven by expectations from parents, teachers, peers. This pressure can lead to stress, anxiety, and even depression. So this is what we're taking a look at. It affects both your mental health and your academic performance. Parental pressure, although it is often well-intentioned, can contribute to negative self-talk and diminished motivation in children. Additionally, modern tools like grade tracking apps, which was a new thing for me, I can actually pull up my kids' grades. In fact, we had this happen this week because one of my kids isn't doing so well in a subject, and my husband looked it up. He's like, oh my gosh, you see this grade? I'm not a big grade person. That's just not how I think kids learn the best. But we have been taught that, hey, if you've got a low grade, you got to bring that up. So these tools where parents can check in all the time can heighten anxiety by offering constant updates, which shifts focus from learning to just achieving high grades. Again, this environment, it creates these issues. It harms students' mental health, their social lives. Everything can become disconnected from friends and family. Here's a former student to explain why worrying about your grades may not be the most important thing long term.
Do you worry or stress too much about grades? School is a high-stress, high-pressure environment. There is a lot of competition between students in many schools, and I don't like this at all. I stressed far too much about grades in high school, and now that I'm a college graduate, I can confidently say that it's not worth it to stress or worry too much about your grades. Note that this doesn't mean that you shouldn't aim to get good grades, but you shouldn't do it at the expense of your mental health. What's the point of being a straight A student if you're depressed? Getting into an Ivy League school isn't going to solve any of your mental health issues. Stop stressing over your grades. There are more important things to be stressing about, such as being a nice person, or taking care of your mental health, or hanging out with friends and family. Just being a good person overall.
Good advice. Balancing academic demands with self-care and support from others is key to reducing that stress and fostering overall well-being. Let's talk about vending machines. I was at the airport, in January, and I noticed that there were these vending machines that had really healthy food in them. And it actually prompted this story. So vending machines are evolving from that traditional junk food that we often think about to include healthier, more nutritious options like protein bars, fresh fruit, yogurt, hummus with veggies and smoothies, really nice sandwiches. So this whole shift is driven by the growing demand for convenient, health-conscious snacks, especially in places like airports, which is where I saw it, gyms, and schools. As people embrace healthier lifestyles, particularly after the pandemic, technology has enabled vending machines to offer fresh and diverse foods while keeping them properly stored. With the market for healthy vending machines projected to grow significantly, these machines are not only meeting consumer demand, but also providing businesses with a smart investment opportunity. In Australia, they are facing a critical shortage of doctors, particularly in the area of general practice, and that is putting significant pressure on their healthcare system. An aging population and rising chronic disease is also increasing that demand, but fewer medical graduates are choosing general practice. This is the problem, partly due to lower pay and challenging working conditions. Rural areas are especially affected, with some towns offering high salaries and housing to attract doctors, but burnout remains a major issue.
I think are probably some of the challenges young aspiring doctors are going to probably be having.
Very, very competitive to get onto training programs. So that's something, and it means because it is so competitive, you're never going, and it shouldn't be like this, but it is. You're never going to complain about unfair working conditions, because if you complain, you won't get a good reference from your senior, and you're dependent on that referee to get you onto a training program.
Yeah.
So it's this perfect recipe for extortion that junior doctors can be overworked, and feel like they can't do anything about it. And then because there's this also pretty toxic culture in medicine of not wanting to show weakness or vulnerability, or like you're not coping, as if that's a personal failure, when in reality we know 20% of doctors get depressed, 1 in 10 have suicide ideation.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's an individual problem, it's a system issue.
While efforts to increase general practitioner training by nearly 20% in 2025 are underway, this shortage remains. Addressing this issue requires better strategies to make general practice more appealing, including improving pay and work-life balance for doctors. All right, how many of you out there like to coupon? You know what I mean? Where you get those little things either in the mail, or perhaps you look up things online to help control this crazy cost of living, right? Couponing has become a popular way to save money on everyday essentials, offering discounts and special offers from retailers and manufacturers. While digital coupons have largely replaced print coupons, online shopping and coupon apps are booming right now, with influencers helping to spread the trend on social media. Savvy shoppers can maximize savings by pairing coupons with sales, but it does require a little bit of planning, some knowledge of store policies as well. While couponing can lead to stockpiling unnecessary items, so don't do that, many people use their savings to donate extra goods to those in need, turning their bargain hunting into an opportunity to give back. Buying refurbished electronics. Has anyone ever done that before? I feel like I won't say whenever there's an upgrade, because I'm not one of those people, but whenever I'm so sick of my phone not working properly, we usually do some sort of refurbished purchase, or selling at least of, old products or whatever. So we do this a lot. And it's a smart way to save money without sacrificing quality. These devices, often returned or defective items that have been restored to like new condition, undergo thorough testing to ensure they work perfectly, sometimes even with upgraded components. Opting for refurbished gadgets not only helps consumers get high quality products at lower prices, but it also supports sustainability by reducing e-waste and promoting a circular economy.
So to wrap things up, buying refurbished electronics can be a smart way to save money, but it's essential to do your homework. Remember to understand what refurbished means, and only buy from reputable sources. check the warranty, read the reviews, inspect the product as soon as you get it, and know what the return policy is and do some price shopping. If you follow all those rules, you'll end up with a piece of equipment that will last you a while and give you a good result.
Not only are refurbished devices a little bit easier on the wallet, but it's also great for those who want to contribute to having a more healthy environment, because we don't need all those gadgets everywhere. Let's reduce that and reduce reuse. All right, across the U.S., businesses are increasingly implementing age restrictions, curfews, and even outright bans on teens, limiting their access to places like malls, fast food joints, and movie theaters. While some businesses argue that these measures are necessary to curb disruptive behaviors like vandalism or shoplifting, data shows teen crime rates are actually declining. Critics, including the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, argue that these policies unfairly target youth people. Youth people? How about young people? Young people, those crazy youth, and violate their civil rights. Here are some DJs. I just thought this was kind of funny, so I threw it in here. Some DJs discussing their youth and how things would have looked a lot different if they were restricted as teens.
And malls are starting to implement new rules because of unruly teens.
Wow.
They're saying that Gen Z kids, so unruly because of TikTok.
Oh.
They're out here doing their social media challenges, and they feel that these teens require chaperones and supervision. Now, this is starting in the States. The rule would require anyone under the age of 18 to be accompanied by a chaperone at least 21 or older on Fridays and Saturdays after 5 p.m.
Wow. And it's not just TikTok. It's always happened like this. Kids need free places to go, to be. And kids were always awful in malls. They made movies about it. You remember mall rats? That was the term. We were mall rats back in the day. I was fine.
I never did watch that movie. Despite these restrictions, teens continue to seek spaces where they can socialize and learn life skills, leading to concerns about these limited opportunities they now have to engage offline. Increasingly, some experts believe teens could help revitalize the retail industry as businesses are beginning to recognize their potential as customers who could reshape shopping in the future. And they're actually starting to cater their spaces more towards teens to help revitalize the industry. In the era of AI, the role of writing is evolving, with some people questioning whether it's still necessary to learn traditional writing skills as AI tools improve. Experts like Melissa Nicholas and Steve Graham argue that writing is not just about forming sentences, but is essential for critical thinking, creativity, and personal expression. While AI can assist in the creative process and improve productivity, it cannot replace human creativity and the way writing helps us make sense of the world.
Is AI and ChatGPT 3 the end of creative writing as we know it? Let's talk about why I truly do see the value in human written stories and why I don't think the art of creative writing is going anywhere. First, I think it helps to remind ourselves that AI content is derivative by design. While AI certainly generates text and can generate stories from a series of prompts, remember that everything it spits out to you is based on the data set that it has been fed and trained on. The act of writing itself is part of the art. So if we outsource the actual writing component to AI, perhaps the generation of that story is something other than writing. Successful storytelling requires individual expression. While AI-generated writing may be grammatically correct and technically proficient, it lacks the artistry of an individual translating their heart and soul into a story.
As AI tools become more integrated into education and the workplace, mastering both writing and AI skills is becoming essential for students to stay competitive. Ultimately, writing remains a key human skill for communication, learning, and growth. Shea trees, essential to the economies and ecosystems of West Africa, are facing significant threats due to deforestation and unsustainable farming practices. In countries like Burkina Faso and Ghana, these trees provide vital income for rural women, with shea butter production being a key source of their livelihood. However, as tree populations decline, women and communities are struggling to maintain their way of life.
Shea butter making has sustained generations of women in Ghana. The yellow paste is often called women's gold, and for many in northern Ghana, it's the only source of income. Portia Asumda has led an organization called Titiaka Boresa for the last 3 years. The group provides cooking pots and training for shea farmers in the Talensi district.
Mostly with this group, most of them are widows. They used to say widows, they can't do anything for their own. But now that they have their own handwork, they are able to do something and earn money and take home. That is where we get our money from. That is where we get our income.
Organizations like Portia's teach traditional shea farmers how to produce better quality butter and understand its value in the local market. With this knowledge, they can take home a higher profit from their sales. For women here, shea butter is a symbol of prosperity and independence.
Efforts to protect shade trees include regenerative agroforestry, beekeeping for pollination, and supporting women-led conservation initiatives. Despite challenges like illegal logging and pests, solutions focusing on sustainable practices, drought-resistant varieties, and policy reforms are critical to safeguarding shade trees for future generations. Have you heard of the low buy and no buy movements on social media? These are gaining popularity this year as people embrace more intentional spending. It's driven by economic uncertainty, environmental concerns, and a desire for financial freedom. Now, a low buy year focuses on cutting back on non-essential purchases, while a no buy year eliminates them entirely, prioritizing needs over wants. This shift helps break free from impulse spending, often triggered by emotional or doom spending during stressful times. Now, many people are finding greater fulfillment by appreciating what they already have and focusing on meaningful experiences. With strategies like creating capsule wardrobes, you'll have to look that one up, or practicing Project Pan, again, look it up, to use up existing products. These movements are reshaping consumer habits and fostering a sense of financial freedom and sustainability. All right, here are the updates from the Global Intelligence Agency reports. These are reports that are put out a few times a week from Kim Gogan, who is the head of the GIA. And a lot of it talks about what the crazy people that are here still on Earth that are trying to control the planet, what they are up to. Sometimes we discuss things that are happening throughout the universe, the multiverse, what the creator is doing, and how it's fundamentally changing the fabric of the reality that we see on a daily basis. Now, this week, we do a lot of talking about what the crazy humans are doing, which usually isn't my favorite thing to talk about because they kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again. It's just really infuriating. I wish they would just watch these reports and save themselves a lot of time, and I'm sure Kim does too. But there's a lot of good information. If you didn't know kind of the structure of our government and some of the things that were happening behind the scenes going back decades and what presidents were doing for decades, we're going to talk about that. So this is still going to be interesting, and you'll learn a couple facts at the very least you can share with friends and be the highlight of every party you go to. Okay, so let's talk about the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. Kim likes to call it dodgy, and that's because this whole thing is unraveling behind the scenes. It is very dodgy. If you're new to UNN, here's a quick recap. Governments around the world are broker than broke. They are robbing Peter to pay Paul. They are promising a lot of things that they absolutely cannot deliver on. And yes, that includes the government within the United States of America. The DOGE department is currently searching for gold to back whatever currency they want to put out there. They have tried to install a lot of things behind the scenes and do a lot of hacking for Trump bucks and whatever cryptocurrency, currency of the dead that they want you to purchase and waste your money on. They are trying to get out a new currency because, again, they are broke. So if you're broke, their logic says, hey, invent a new currency. And then you can just create currency out of thin air. They learn that doesn't work. So now they are searching for gold to back their currency of choice, whatever that happens to be. You've probably even seen some headlines about them wanting to audit Fort Knox, where allegedly most of the gold is stored. So let's talk about gold here. Kim says they have found what they believe to be tungsten. So we're going to talk a little bit about tungsten. We're going to talk about gold in general, because not all gold is created equal here on Earth. This is something your history books are never going to tell you. This is a GIA exclusive. And the reason is because our science is off. Our elemental charts are off. So here is Kim really explaining to the deep state, but also to you guys, so you understand what gold really is, why the stuff they're looking for isn't going to work, never will work to back a financial system.
The disappointing part is most of what they've found they believe to be tungsten. If you don't know about tungsten, tungsten and gold are relatively the same weight, and it's kind of grayish or blackish gray in color. And they believed that they had been, basically found fool's gold. That's what they thought. They just don't understand there's gold and there's gold and there's gold. And not all gold is created equal, because our science here on Earth, well, sucks. Sorry to use that kind of word, but it does. And there are, I hate to say man-made because that's not true. There are types of gold that exist on this planet, which I've told you a little bit about, that are not naturally occurring minerals or metals that exist on planet Earth. You could say that you can create this other substance, and for a human to create it, probably not possible. Even in a deep underground military base, SSP base, it's going to take a few special things that are often brought to Earth or were brought to Earth in order to create this very specific type of metal. And I call them metamaterials because they are made of a compilation of materials and a lot of alchemy that creates these other types of gold. So if they actually took this tungsten that they found and believed to be tungsten that they found, they would see some molecular differences if it were to be analyzed, where they would be able to ascertain that there are some anomalies that they cannot explain with our science. Even with the extended periodic table that, of course, the SSP has, or Secret Space Program folks had, and some of the other Nazi experimental folks had, there would definitely be something in there, and more than one thing in there, that they cannot identify. It would come up as an unknown substance. And that is pretty much what they're finding everywhere. The reason why they're finding this gold, for lack of a better term, everywhere is because it is the basis for the financial system. It's the basis for financial systems that existed to create off-world trade. It was also the basis for the worldwide debt system. And by debt system, I don't necessarily mean, you owe money on your credit card, or the fact that the Federal Reserve only issues quote unquote notes and not, or IOUs, so to speak. And everybody thinks on the internet that it's an IOU for gold, when we were on the gold standard, that type of thing, but it's really not. And the system that was created, basically what you call our financial system, was created to, enslave humanity. And that includes the people that believe they are the slave owners or the slave masters, known as, the Illuminati, Rothschild families, the Li family in China, and so on and so forth. But even they can't create this type of gold. This is something that was created by their masters. And They're masters that were not human. The gold that they keep finding is a substance that I refer to as black gold. There is also something called neutral gold, which is more grayish in color. And the difference between black gold, neutral gold, and actual natural gold is that black gold is designed and created by others to actually draw energy from you as a person. It actually draws energy from Earth and then sends that energy. These are little storage, kind of like we talked about a year ago or so when I explained what we call an altar, which are these large levitating databases that were thrown all over this planet. This is actually created to absorb your energy. So as you work or create a company or create ideas, oftentimes we do these things for, in part, a financial reward. We want to have the money so that we can buy things and hire people and all kinds of stuff. But this particular gold is still and was still the basis for our financial system on this planet. Even after we went off the gold standard, it is designed to take in energy from you and hand you back an IOU, aka a note. And this is how our whole system worked. Energy coming from you as humans and human batteries, so to speak, was very important for the creation of other worlds and for the maintaining of something we call the grids, which existed on Earth. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more because it's a part of the exchange of the systems and why it was critical for us to do this in order for us to move forward. But in this particular case, we're talking about deep state people and crazy ideas. So they've been searching everywhere for the gold that backs the financial system so that they can gather all that gold together and therefore return to a quote unquote gold standard, be that against a digital currency or crypto or currency of the dead, as in all crypts are, or, back a different dollar or back a different currency altogether for all of North America and for the 9 other jurisdictions they plan to create and control on this planet. Again, this is what happens when Duck Dynasty tries to run a planet, but that's okay. We're going to help them out a little bit today, and we're going to explain to them exactly why that's not possible. So they can go looking for bunkers and Chinese elders and Indonesian elders and all kinds of people, but the gold that they're actually finding is not going to actually be real gold. This is alchemized gold. It is self-transmuting, energy-absorbing transmitters that transmits your energy to other worlds or to other AI type devices in order for you to power other things that were important to non-humans.
So this puts a whole new spin on gold. Those commercials that you see, buy gold here. Well, what in the world is that really? What kind of quote unquote gold is that? Is it going to suck your energy out? You probably have no way to test it. So, there's a lot of people, patriots, that are buying gold. This is the first thing I thought of when I heard Kim's explanation of gold. Like, how would you really know? Like, these people are going out and they don't even know, right? And they're trying to back a financial system. So just to expand on what she was saying about how gold was used to power other things, she continues on and talks about how gold would have what's called a hallmark to indicate what it was empowering or what it was powering up. Okay, because if you just saw these gold bars, let's just say, not real gold, but gold bars, then what was it actually doing? She said, and this is very telling, the gold under the Vatican, you've heard about all these reserves that the Vatican has. It did, not real gold. It had this black gold, and it had an omega shape on it. So it kind of looks like a horseshoe. It's a Greek letter, right? Omega. You may have heard in religious scriptures, God being called the Alpha and the Omega. And that is true. So the Alpha was the light side of the system that everything ran on, and Omega was the dark side of the system. So that gold that was under the Vatican, if it has an Omega on it, which indicates where its power is going to, that means that that gold under a place that is supposed to be known for doing good in the world, right? It's the place for Catholics and Christians around the world. That was actually powering dark worlds. So this is how messed up our religion has become on this planet, right? They were harnessing the power of the people coming to the Vatican to power dark entities, dark worlds, dark matter, omega worlds. Kim also talks a little bit more about the Sequestro program, which we talked about last week as well, and how that program is being removed. And that program, it was an AI program. She says if Alpha and Omega came together, had a baby, it would be Sequestro. It controlled so many things, you guys. The easiest way to explain it is that it controlled all electronics on Earth. But you yourself are electronic. Okay, so it's not just your gadgets. Kim does a really good job. In fact, she gets out the whiteboard and she explains how all of this was done through grids within the planet, grids within your body. It was kind of hard to translate into a podcast because you really need to see, and again, this is on Monday's GIA report. So if you guys want to go back, I do encourage you guys to check this out because she's explaining how Sequestro was actually using your body, the grids within your body, the grids within the planet, in order to send out some nasty frequencies to control the weather. I mean, she even mentioned HARP. She's like, HARP wasn't really controlling the weather, right? It was really being done through this program. And so if you really want a really big deep dive into it, I encourage you guys to go back and check that out. But I do have one soundbite that I want to play for you guys where she talks about how Sequestro is being replaced by what she calls, it's another KIM system, Key Integrated Master System. And this was really important. And we need to talk a little bit about this change and how it impacts humanity.
In comes the Key Integrated Master System to take its place. So being the creator, or co-creator, I should say, on the omniverse level of KIMs, another KIMs, everything that they thought that they had power and control over on this level and down, I've got the master key. And having the master key gives me control to eliminate as many earth grids as I want, and it gives me the ability to make my own. And by make my own, there are some positive things that can come out of a source gold-based grid. It can serve as protection. Things try to, as we're doing cleanup things from other places, it can serve as a protection. It can also ensure that they cannot shut down the power grid and have blackouts and 10 days of darkness and blah, 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 blah that they talk about. We can also knock things out of the sky like Starlink maybe, if it gets in our way. There's a lot of benefits to having access to some of these grids. Now, again, we're doing it for the purposes not of power. We are not trying to be the kings of the world over here, or the queen, for that matter. We are trying to right the wrongs and get rid of all of the worlds that were connected to both you as humans and also to Earth, to get rid of old dark gold and make sure that everything that's left here of gold, so to speak, is clean and pure and of source. And of course, there's no negotiating with these people. And to control all of Earth's base route platforms, Stargate systems, portal systems, that type of thing. So hopefully they'll get a grip, these crazy people, and come to a conclusion once we're finished cleaning all these worlds, which hopefully won't take much longer. Then they'll get a grip that 1111s and 222s and Lionsgates and Stargates and all the other days and planetary alignments. We have another a new moon coming up here on the 27th and a planetary parade on the 28th. I'm sure these are wonderful times where they think something's going to open for them, but it won't, because it's now the earthly systems now belong to the key integrated master system.
So that was a very big and important development this week. And again, that was from Monday's report. And then on Wednesday, Kim starts her report by talking about and showing, we actually showed some videos of some crazy videos that are out there that don't look too good for Elon and Trump. Okay. There was a hack video that was done using AI, and it was played, I want to say it was HUD, the Department for Housing and Urban Development. I believe it was in their building, where this video was portrayed on monitors of Trump sucking Elon's toes, like basically saying like Trump is doing whatever Elon wants, And this is really the sentiment of many of the people in the government. They feel like the government is being overrun right now by someone who wasn't even elected. And there was another video that was showed in this report, and it was posted to Trump's Truth Social account. I don't know if he created, this is another AI video, which is completely, it's like he was tone deaf when he decided to post this. But it is an AI video showing Gaza, the Gaza Strip, and how it is converted into like this Trump paradise. So you've got this crazy Trump casino in lights. You've got gold statues of Trump. Now, here's the thing. Anybody that sees this, because again, it was posted on his account. So either he or someone from his team posted this. No one can look at this and say this isn't some form of idol worship, okay, or encouragement of idol worship. So any religious groups that are out there saying, oh, Trump's going to save us, whatever, like really look at this stuff that's being put out there, because there's absolutely no way to defend it. This is a war-torn area that he essentially is saying is going to turn into this casino paradise. And it's really tone deaf. Like, that's a polite way of saying it. But this is the content that's being put out about Trump and Elon right now. So that was part of the report. Now, Kim also talks about how through some of the comments that have been submitted, probably through apps and, the videos that we post online, that there has been a little bit of criticism about how we're always talking about Trump and we're not talking about, for example, Biden. So you have to understand, and when I say we're, it's like me talking about it in the podcast. Like Kim will talk about it on the GIA report, and then, I'll say something about it and make some comments on the podcast. And you have to understand, there really aren't sides. Okay, at least how this structure was set up. Yeah, there was some animosity between the sides, but everybody was controlled from the top down. And control over this planet was far beyond the office of the presidency. So when we talk about one side, it's not that we're favoring the other side. It's that it's all a giant beep show, okay? And usually whoever's speaking the loudest or doing the most amount of damage is who we're going to talk about. But Kim wanted to address that, and I wanted to second that as well. We didn't talk a lot about the Biden administration, and Kim has talked about this in reports before, because she had very little contact with that group. That group was run by the Chinese, and they were trying to take over control. And if the U.S. fell, then the power control of the planet was supposed to go to China. That was the plan for like the last 60 years, because every 60, 70 years, you have to have a major change in power in order to keep the people in line. So after the United States, it was supposed to go back to China, and China was behind the Biden administration. That's just a fact. Okay, that's not partisan politics. That's just a fact. So the soundbite that I want to play for you now is Kim proving that she's nonpartisan in all of this. And she goes through the last, 4 or 5 presidencies and talks about the issues that she's had with all of the presidents. And I'm sure you'll have issues with this as well, because you don't get into this position by being a nice person. It just doesn't work that way. And there's really no excuse for what they do. But even presidents that were considered to be good people did really horrible things. So let's just go through. This is a longer soundbite. I think it's like 20 minutes long, but you're going to get a lot of really good golden nuggets of history in this that would take episodes and episodes to explain. So this is just, think of this as bullet points on what these crazy presidents have done in the past. Here's Kim.
Let's compare presidents for a minute, and I'll just go through the last few and kind of give you some inside information of things we know here at the Global Intelligence Agency as to who is who in the zoo. Okay, comparing Biden to Trump. Who is a pedophile? Well, both of them. Who participated in the 40th year birthday ritual that is from the deep state, where there are young children involved? I'll leave it at this. There are very young children involved. Usually there is some blood from young children involved, and some altars and some really weird stuff. Now, I personally was in Moscow when Trump was there once, and it had to do with him going through another ritual in which he thought he was going to be appointed Pindar. Pindar, for those of you that don't know, is a position, a very high position in the Illuminati, the Order of the Dragon, in which there is a special throne and a gold chair. If you've never seen these types of rooms before, you can watch the movie Lara Croft, and I believe it's the first one where there's a scene towards the end of one of the members of the Illuminati, and Lara Croft walks into the room and says, "Didn't you know that your dad sat in this head chair?" So take a look, see if you can find it. If not, there's probably a YouTube clip that's, a minute or two long that shows the scene. So this actually happened at that time in Moscow with Trump, when he kept thinking he was going to be the Pindar. So much so, the rumor actually spread throughout the ranks of the order, and everybody started calling him Pindar. And how fitting, because you have the not yet appointed, I guess, or failed ritual person known as Elon Musk, who has tried to be the head of the Order of the Black Sun, coupled together in a tight little partnership with someone else who thinks he's the Pindar, or, well, he's definitely not anything anymore, but the Trump operatives believe they are running the position of Pindar and working closely with the rest of the order, as the Rothschild family, the Lee family. There are Russian groups. Gorbachev is part of the order as well. There are Angela Merkel. There are plenty of people that you see in the public eye that are part of the Order of the Dragon everywhere. So, and then the other side is the part of the Order of the Black Sun, such as George Soros and other people like the Rockefellers, and, just all of these people that as just lovely human beings. Not. On the Biden side of it, he was very closely tied in with the Lee family of China. Hunter Biden had done a lot of oil deals and gas deals. The gas deals were predominantly in the Ukraine during the first Ukrainian war. He also continued to do business in Kazakhstan, where he was brokering oil deals between Kazakhstan and China Petroleum at the time, where they were trying to take over Kazakhstan's oil reserves, and he stood to make about $250 million personally from that deal. Now, as with all presidents, they usually appoint a family member, a close person. Sometimes in the case of like Nancy Pelosi, it's her husband that did all the deals, that she clued him in on, even though it's illegal under the Stock Act of the United States to do so. But that doesn't mean that everybody doesn't do it. In the case of Biden, that was obviously Hunter. Hunter was going out and making all the deals. In the case of Trump, in the last administration, it was Jared Kushner and Ivana. They made a lot of deals with Israel, a lot of deals with Saudi Arabia, and most of which never actually came to fruition. However, that doesn't mean they didn't make their cut of millions of dollars. And on both sides, they both did the same. The only difference is that Hunter's a little bit of a mess, and there is a lot of people, or are a lot of people out there that do not like Biden. And most of those people that don't like Biden are on the other side, meaning they are with the Order of the Black Sun. Now, the difference between the Order of the Dragon and the Order of the Black Sun is over recent years, there has been a lot of conflict between the Order of the Dragon and the Order of the Black Sun. The Order of the Black Sun predominantly managed the quote-unquote security of the planet for about 3,000 years. That means that they are in control of most of the militaries worldwide, intelligence agencies worldwide, and most of the operative groups worldwide. Now, even those that managed the Biden dementia situation, now, a lot of that, as you know, the role of Biden was played by other dead people. Biden had been dead for about 3 weeks into the presidency. And most of those roles were played by people like General Hyten, as one example. And then he started to lose it a little bit. And then, there were other people that they ushered in to play the role of Biden during his administration. There was many times where they talked about announcing that he had passed away if they had been successful in gaining some control over the financial system and other political systems. So the operatives that work for the Biden administration are the same group of people, albeit a little more polished, let's just say, than the Duck Dynasty operatives that are also running a dead guy in the office. So as you may or may not know, Trump passed away quite a while ago of natural causes. In this case, it started out as prostate cancer and kind of spread and got out of control, and he refused treatment. So that being said, the Trump operatives have been running this show for a few years now, including all of the rallies and the fake ear shooting and everything else. So both sides pranced around dead guys as president. So there's some similarity, another similarity there as well. Both parties went through the rituals. Both parties sold their children or actually lent their children for sexual reasons to other members of the order, whether it's the Order of the Black Sun or the Order of the Dragon. Both presidents have been on their knees for higher ranking members of the order. Yep. They have been. And what I mean by on their knees, I don't mean they're begging for something or praying or anything like that. Of course not. Let's just say there were men standing very close in front of them. So I'll leave the rest of it to you because this is a news broadcast after all. Okay, wars. During the Biden administration, you had the Russia-Ukraine war break out. Allegedly on the Trump side, they said that they were going to solve this problem. This problem still has not been solved. Why hasn't it been solved? Well, Biden gave fake pallets of cash to Ukraine and Russia, and Trump gave Trump bucks. Even before he got back into office, and Trump reserve bank cards and all kinds of things, and nobody has paid them anything, and therefore they're just kind of continuing business as usual over there until somebody manages to do so. In one case, it was also going to be the Chinese that were going to pay, and they have not paid yet either. So, yep, they're kind of free agents right now still. To continue on, we also had the war in Israel, and it's still ongoing during this administration, and it's been a little over a month. Now, apparently, we've heard things like Trump intends to wipe out all the people of Gaza, relocate them over to Jordan and Egypt, and build the Gaza Riviera. How exciting is that? Just great people all around. Biden's walking around, fake Biden, I should say, because Biden died quite a bit early in his presidency with dementia. The reason why he walked around with dementia is because his Chinese handlers, or the handlers of the operatives that run the Biden show, or ran the Biden show, I should say, are all in favor of the Chinese takeover of the world. In this particular case, on the Trump side, they believe that America should be the headquarters of the world, and they are fighting to bankrupt the United States right now in order to effectuate that change where they would then be the kings of North America, which is part of the Rothschild plan as well. It's just who is in charge. So the Chinese have been promised they would be in charge, and the other guys are coming in and saying it should be America. That's the only tit for tat here. But this isn't a new game. This game has been played for a long time, and it's been set up for a while. So there's your talk about Biden. Of course, we could go into some more intricate details. And for those of you that have been around for a while and you remember the very short-lived Hennessy commercial where you got to see Biden shirtless and then you can't unsee it, it's still out there deep, deep, deep in the web somewhere, so I'm sure you'll be able to find it. But it's been mostly scrubbed because they felt it was inappropriate for a then vice president. Anyway, moving on to other folks. So that's enough similarities to show you that I have talked about both sides. And I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I could care less who sits in the office. And the only time I ever really paid attention is because I had to for a job, which is head and director of the Global Intelligence Agency, Ground Command Guardian, an ambassador, and a lot of other things, not only within the United States, but around the world. Okay, next, let's talk briefly about Obama. Oh, Obama. Also participated as a pedophile, also participated in rituals, has a wife who was actually a husband, and sold all the United States military equipment and bases to China so that the United States government could lease them back. You know, that one stuck out to me. He also signed the Paris Climate Control Treaty, which had a little Santa Claus in it, as I call them, that says you have now assigned all of your in-ground resources over to the United Nations in order to fight poverty, quote unquote. He also permitted the United Nations for the first time ever to install little substations of the United Nations on BLM land due to the fact he assigned all of America's in-ground resources, even though he didn't have the power to do so, to the United Nations. That's another stellar president for you right there, isn't it? You know, I hope he and his husband enjoy their, retirement. Anyway, moving forward to the next one, Bush Jr. and Cheney. Okay, little few secrets there. All right, so Bush Jr. obviously had lent his daughter over to Cheney at a very young age, where Cheney could proceed to, let's just say, perform sexual acts on their children, and they would exchange children regularly for such purposes. They also participated in the 40-year-old birthday ritual involving young children and lots of blood. So did Obama, by the way. They're all members. Lots of wars going on. We had a 9/11 situation to which Bush didn't respond to 3 days later. We also know there were many calls to the White House on the day that it happened and the night before that it happened from an area called K Street. Now, for those of you that don't know, K Street is where all your operatives hang out. K Street told them it's happening, it's going to happen tomorrow, and you need to clear out, and this is what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to do it. Now, remember, everybody in the White House is an actor, and those on K Street are the script writers. So they knew ahead of time that 9/11 was going to happen. Also, most of that was orchestrated for your visual enjoyment, meaning there were planes that went places to underground utopias where people were taken hostage and used as slaves underground. The planes that allegedly crashed into the towers weren't planes at all. They were holograms. The towers did go down, and you can take a look at the buildings because they were imploded. There was a lot of black gold that moved out of buildings here and there over to Canada because of other things they needed to have happen. A lot of people died, and then the consequences of that day were around 3,000 to 4,000 people. I think it was 3,500 if I remember correctly off the top of my head. However, the caustic chemicals and smoke and things that flew around in the air caused thousands of more to have cancer. This, of course, done on 9/11 was a ritual, just like everything else that they do. And I'm sure at the time, because there was still money flowing at that time from Marduk, and I am sure they got paid a hefty sum to perform this function. Now, these buildings were already rigged to blow, and it took no time at all for the operatives to set up this entire operation, which the entire world viewed. Okay, that's another lovely president, isn't it? Just lovely. Cheney, there's also a movie called Vice. You can take a look at that, where it shows that he was actually the one running the White House, and Bush Jr. just kind of sat in the front. And no surprise coming from a guy that pours whiskey on his Cheerios. That would be Bush Jr. Okay, let's talk about Bush Sr. Bush Sr. was married to Barbara, a.k.a. Bush, a.k.a. Rothschild. Barbara was almost as bad as George. I'm sure they made a lovely pair. George earned himself the position as head of the Order of the Black Sun for a time, also known as Black Dragon. That's the position that Elon Musk is going for right now. Bush Sr. also participated in the Nazi loot game, which became the Black Eagle Trust, which no longer exists. The Black Eagle Trust then was in charge of operations worldwide. The Black Eagle Trust was based on a whole, I would say a ton, but I would say it was more like thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of tons of black gold. The predominant main sources of funds worldwide, you might have seen documents floating around on the internet called the White Spiritual Boy accounts. I don't know if there's anything white or spiritual about any of those people involved. However, the main account that funded those thousands and thousands of banks worldwide, and these were off-ledger accounts, was Credit Suisse. So the main fund was actually registered to Credit Suisse, with some at UBS and a few other locations in the world. The gold was then moved to several locations, Tehran being one, Indonesia being another, and a few other places in the world. It is not gold, it's black gold, to where it could be utilized to feed the grid, so to speak, that tortured many humans on Earth. So quite a guy, really. But, you know, as president, there's a lot of wars there, isn't there? Yeah. Of course, all paid for and funded by the Black Eagle Trust. Also, in 1992, Bush participated in the funding of the Transneft pipeline, to which he personally yielded $1 per barrel of oil that flowed through that pipeline personally in their family fund. However, the money to fund that came from the Black Eagle Trust. So, a lot of privileges as Black Eagle or Black Dragon, and there's no wonder that Elon Musk and his ego would love to be in that position. But I'm with the AI guys. He has two left feet. He doesn't know which end is up. Talk about more about that in a second. Okay, let's go back a little further, and we're not going to do this too much longer. So we'll go back to Reagan and Nancy. Everybody loved the good cowboy and the war on drugs and everything, especially since it came from two people that were hooked on heroin. Nancy Reagan also had her own personal black magic witches that used to frequent the White House during that administration. And on the Reagan side of things, well, how much can you really do when you're hooked on heroin? If you've ever seen the movie, American Made, there's a lot about the Reagan administration hidden in there. And some of those operatives I've actually met personally that participated. However, a lot of the Trump operatives were also Reagan operatives, and they are older guys. And yep, a lot of them are from the southern states. And yeah, they're kind of Duck Dynasty-ish, at least who is left anyway. They were probably lower ranking in the Reagan administration as operatives, but they thought they'd give themselves a go here and try to do something with the presidency, I guess. The world was a different place at that time. Money was flowing, Marduk was in full swing, and, now that's not the case. And the only reason why the Trump administration was successful the last time is because I was there on that terminal sending money because I thought he was going to help the people and do the right thing, which that never actually happened. So if you remember correctly, we were all locked down for quite a bit of time. Also, a little bit more information here about Reagan. Reagan also cut the deal on behalf of Rothschild to have Gorbachev join the ranks and rise up the ranks of the Order of the Red Dragon, which is a part of the Illuminati. The deal was cut where he would manage $11 trillion personally and over $300 trillion professionally. He then became the hidden financier, so to speak, of the new Russian Federation and all the former USSR states. That was his region, and he was in charge for quite a long time. Since the Rothschilds' fund over there dried up, Gorbachev doesn't hold a whole lot of weight with the rest of the Russian clans who run the country, also known as the ex-KGB. Okay, other things that happened. Bush and Reagan fought quite a bit, Bush Sr. And the reason why they fought quite a bit is because they were both in the running for head of the Order of the Black Sun or Order of the Dragon. Matter of fact, it was actually Bush Sr. that ordered a CIA agent, only known as the first name Henry. I can't remember the last name off the top of my head. But Henry is actually the one that shot Reagan. And Bush Sr. is the one that ordered it to happen. Also in return, Reagan also shot one of Bush's nearest and dearest and left the body with the head in a different position, let's just say, not attached to the body, on his front porch. And this fight ensued, like cowboys do, for the entire Reagan administration. So there's your presidential dirt. Now I have officially, no one can say I haven't talked about the last few presidents.
I love that she called it presidential dirt. I think that's really funny. So that's a completely different look at U.S. presidents, right? And again, we're not just singling out the U.S. Every prime minister, president, just go down the whole gamut. Every country in the world has dirt. We're just trying to explain why it's not the left versus the right, okay? They're all a mess. The whole system, this whole structure, the reason it's falling apart is because it doesn't work anymore. The whole house of cards is literally coming down right now. And this is why. It's built on power, greed, and lies. Okay, so that was Wednesday's report. And then on Friday, Kim talked about another video that's going viral, not an AI video, but if you guys seen the video with Trump, it's in the Oval Office. So apparently Zelensky from Ukraine came to visit the White House. And of course, they're going to do a little ditty for I guess I can't say ditty anymore, can I? That's probably bad. They're going to do a little show in the Oval Office for the press. So this is C or D-rated acting at its finest, you guys. This is Trump, and I think Vance even gets in there a little bit, and they're fighting with Zelensky in the most unprofessional manner possible. Now, I would be completely offended if this were a real thing, but knowing that this was a structured, manufactured event for the press for God knows what reason, to show that that Trump is powerful and he's going to take down Zelensky. So you can look up this video on your own. It's very cringe. It's very hard to watch. Unless you like watching really bad actors just kind of flub over their words and say the same thing over and over again. Like, I expected like a director to come out at any time and say, "Hey, cut! That we can do it better than that, guys. Cut. Oh, wait, this is a D-rated movie. I forgot." So check that out just for entertainment purposes. But obviously they're trying to put on a show of strength for the U.S. So Zelensky, but they're on the same side, whatever. Like, it's a show for you guys. But this leads us into the soundbite that I want to play, which is really talking about what the government really is, because there were some calls that came in to Kim's team from Langley, okay? And they were complaining about the Trump operatives, which is also the secret space program operatives, because they're running the Trump S show over there. Beep show. They are running the whole thing over there. And people are starting to question their sanity. So these calls from Langley were talking about that. And so it's worth talking more about the government, what the government really is, and probably more importantly, what it isn't, because Doge is claiming that they're going to come in here and clean all this mess up. The problem is some of these departments that they're talking about cleaning up, when they talk about the CIA and the NSA and all these different branches, these intelligence agencies, aren't actually part of the government. They reported to different people and still would if those people existed. Now everyone's pretty much just gone rogue. So what exactly is going on here? What exactly is the government? We talked, I think it was a couple weeks ago, we talked about the executive branch and how there's a constitutional argument to be had that the executive branch isn't even part of our government. So what in the world is the government, at least in the U.S.? What does this actually look like? Because according to Kim, Doge going in and saying they're going to clean stuff up really isn't about cleaning up corruption. It's a money grab.
During this call with Langley, and then the subsequent call to me, I explained a number of different things that maybe they know, maybe they don't know. I'm not sure. First of all, the CIA is not a government department. Never has been a government department. Not since its inception has it been a government department. There are many departments that we think that are going to be cleaned up as the swamp is drained by orange people, and they're going to save the day. We have heard things like the military is going to be cleaned up, the CIA is going to be cleaned up, Homeland Security is going to be cleaned up, the Treasury Department is, that Doji's on that like white on rice. Nobody's really mentioned the Mint. The Federal Reserve is dead because of Trump and orange people. It kind of reminds me of Willy Wonka, Oompa Loompa. And then none of this is actually going to happen by an alleged member or group of operatives running the U.S. government. It's just simply not possible. Because you see, in the world of rankings as to who is who in the zoo, technically, places like the military, the CIA, DNI, Homeland Security, the FBI, none of these are registered government departments. That's the first thing. Secondly, they've reported to higher ranks than the office of a president. Just because these operatives are in a big white house, they think they have the right to send in their own people to go ahead and clean up the quote-unquote swamp. But they keep forgetting that these are just contractors. They not only work for the United States, they also work for the Order of the Black Sun. They also report to, say, other folks like global headquarters in the past or currently. They reported then eventually to black nobility in Italy. They also reported to a bunch of non-humans at one point in time. And all the way up at the top, at the end of the day, they reported to the same people everybody else does. As far as the office of the president, normally the office of the president of any country, that is, would never be able to phone such a high office, meaning they wouldn't have the same communication that the CIA has had and the military has had. Also, the other thing they forget is the Treasury is also not a government department. There is no mint that is a government department. Definitely not the Fed. We all know that. The IRS, also not a government department. Pretty much anything that runs finances in the United States is not a government department. They all reported to Rothschild. And I say Rothschild and I use the name loosely because it's pretty much the order of the Blue Dragon that has been, well, in control of the United States sector anyway. You know, we have different colors of dragons, as you know, that other countries reported to. But such a low office as the office of the president doesn't have the right to walk into any of these institutions. And I explained this loudly to several people because it's way above their head. It's outside their authority. Now, I think because a lot of these guys that work there as operatives are SSP or Secret Space Program operatives. They feel they have a higher clearance level than some of these other groups. Now, that can be rectified in 2 seconds flat. You know, I don't have any problem with that, as long as everybody has an understanding that you now work for me. Nobody hires thousands of people and then says, oh, here's a bunch of money, have a nice day, you don't have to actually work or anything. Just said no one ever. So on that note, the call was heard loud and clear, but there's a lot going on kind of with the Trump operatives too. First of all, them throwing this guy in there with marching orders, trying to say they're going to clean up rogue operatives that aren't really rogue, and they're going to clean up all these other operations. This is just another money grab. Look, I don't agree with all the businesses that the CIA is into, let's just say. And I don't agree with a lot of the methodologies that they use, let's just say. But you know, the Doji department and the Trump administration and their operatives are so easy to read. Do they care about making America great again or making Iraq great again? MIGA, MAGA, MOGA, MUGA? No, they don't. Technically, if you really want to look at it this way, without all of us, meaning American citizens or citizens of any other country, you don't have a country. But in this particular case, all they're really trying to do is take operations money that is earned from, let's just say, strange and unusual trading practices, and I'll leave it at that, because we are talking on the news here, strange and unusual trading practices that have gone on, and put it underneath their umbrella, because they're starting to lose all of those siphons, and there really isn't a whole lot to be found by the Doji department anymore. And that's becoming more and more apparent. So they're looking for anyone, anywhere, especially in the United States, that makes any kind of money so that they can actually take it.
So the good thing with all this is it's kind of a nightmare situation for them. Really, they're starting to turn on each other and lose face with each other, or lose faith with each other. And really, that's kind of what you want. This is how structures and whole societies meaning their world, their dark, negative world, how those structures, those pillars start to collapse. And so it's happening. It really is happening. And Kim says it's expected to get even worse this weekend. She said the train is coming off the tracks, and it's really due to bad script writing, right? Because the actors are now writing the script. It's like the script writers went on strike. And by strike, I mean they went back to source forever and ever. Amen. So they have no script writers, and they're making up their own stuff, which is evident by that crazy conversation with Trump and Zelensky with a little dash of Vance. Again, go check that out if you haven't seen it already. It's pretty funny. Okay, so that is the rundown for this week. If you guys want to learn more about us and who we are, what we do, visit our website, unitednetwork.earth. If you want to become a member, you can do that through our website. That gives you complete access to all of our news updates the moment we put them out there, our New Earth interviews, updates from the Global Intelligence Agency, and we talk about all things restoration and where our planet is going, and you are a big part of that. So thank you for listening to today's episode. If you like it, please share it with someone you care about. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.